Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Kaba Ilco number 7165YA2-03. This is a mortise cylinder is what it is. It is a 1-inch mortise cylinder. That blue film you see there is just the peel-away protective film covering the solid brass, polished brass with a lacquer scalp plate. That's what that's called, a scalp plate, a very thin piece of architectural metal that covers the face of all of that. Made of solid brass, both the plug and the housing. That affords a very nice, smooth, consistent, dependable, reliable operation for many, many years, decades in fact. Okay. The thing to do with Kaba Ilco is dissect the part number, but before we do that, a 7165 means it's 1 inch. The dimension from the underside of the head to the back of the cam is what is measured as 1 inch. All manufacturers of mortise cylinders measure it that way, except one. They measure it the length of the body. That would be best. I've studied why they do that, and I've come up with my own conclusions as to why they do that. Just be mindful that that's how they do it. Except almost everyone else will measure it underside of the head to the back of the cam. That's where the 1 inch comes into play. Anyway, not to get distracted with thinking why that's done. This is a typical 1 5/32 diameter, 32 ultrafine threads per inch. That's what that is. Ultrafine is a type of thread when you want to pack as many threads in a given space, 1 inch, because you're installing this down to something that's otherwise very thin, like a lock case, is why they would do that. If this was 18 threads per inch, you wouldn't get much of a thread through, let's just say it was 12 threads per inch, and you had, back up. Let's say 16 threads per inch, just to make it even with 1 inch. If you wrote, if you had, in a 1/16 of an inch, you'd only have one thread, one complete thread, and if that lock case is only 3/32 of an inch, you don't even have 2 threads worth. But in a 32 thread per inch, that same 1/16 of an inch, you'll have 2 threads holding it on, rather than one, is I guess the point I'm driving at. This has a cam on the back, and we'll talk about that when we dissect it. Where are you going to use this? Where is this client using this? Well, I don't know. Going to a private individual, it appears. Where they're using this is very likely, well, the 1 inch is a tip-off that it's aluminum storefront, although polished brass is not that common. It could be that you have a piece of mortised locking hardware in a door, and you just simply don't need a 1 1/8 or 1 1/4 cylinder, because all you're doing with that 1 1/8 or 1 1/4 cylinder is you're just filling the unused space with a blocking ring. Well, if you had just a very thin collar, 1 3/4 thick door, that collar is 1/8 of an inch. Now the underside of the collar to the back of the cam is 7/8. Well, 7/8 times 2 is 1 3/4. That's probably a pretty good size for a typical door. So I'm a fan of using the smallest, shortest hardware every single time that you can, whether it be a mortise cylinder or a hinge, and using the smallest amount of ancillary hardware to make up for that as possible. And that could be what's happening here. The fact that it's an Adams Rite cam, of course, is a major tip-off. They asked for that. Okay. This is in a Yale 999 or a Yale 8 keyway. Typical Yale original look-alike bow, that round head that's there, very typical and common. That is 5-pin. This is drilled 5 as well, meaning there are 5 chambers drilled in this, and all 5 of them have pin tumblers in them. You could do a 1 1/8 cylinder that would be drilled 6 and pinned 5, or drilled 6 and pinned 6, but when you're at a 1 inch length, I think it's only going to be a 5-inch length cylinder, is the bottom line. Okay. You might also have 6-pin cylinders. 6-pin, an existing key system that's 6-pin Yale, you wouldn't want to use a 1 inch cylinder because you would not be able to take advantage of that 6th chamber in the cut. Let's dissect the part number, but let's do so on the screen because we'll look at the catalog as we do it. Stand by. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here is the item that we are looking at. That's a stock image from the factory. Let's look at some actual images. There's the box. There's the cylinder with that peel-away protective film pulled back a little bit. Then again, side view. Backside showing the cam. That's the 2 in the part number. Well, it's the first 2. The keys. The milling of the key. This would be the opposite of the thumb side. And here's the thumb side milling. That would be considered a paracentric keyway, no doubt. The term paracentric means that the key, crosses, if that's a straight line dissecting that, that means the keyway crosses the center line, making it paracentric, making it more resistant to methods of bypass. That's called a paracentric keyway. That's what that is. Speaking of the keyway, I don't have a close-up of the keyway itself, but we did have one of the front of the cylinder. Okay, again, paracentric. Okay, so that's what the cylinder looks like. Then again, those 2 original keys. That's a Yale bow, that round bow. Yale has other bows. They have a different bow for different types of keys. Security has their own bow. I think control keys also get their own bow. The United States Postal Service will have a modification to their key. The U.S. Postal Service uses Yale exclusively. It's actually a federal crime to order key blanks. Postal Service key blanks, believe it or not. Which I guess that's not hard to believe. There is some extended description information down below. It's a 1-inch, 5-pin Yale 8 or a 999. It's got the 863A cam on the back. That's the Adams Wright cam. Polished brass, dimensional properties, rekeyable to original manufacturer systems. I find that to be pretty accurate. The depth and spacing data for Yale, a original Yale cylinder, would be observed in this unit as well. Now, 7165YA2 let's kind of keep that in the back of our head. Let's click on the manufacturer's page as seen here, and then let's pull up the brass cylinder manual here, and we're going to scroll down and get to where we have the cylinders listed. So 7165, right there. By the way, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll get to it. 7165 means it's 1 inch. Then we have YA. YA is down here in step 2 for Yale YA. Or Yale 8, 999. What key blank are you going to use with that? Well, there's another chart in the back here, and I just did a Control F or find function on my keyboard. That Y8 takes the Ilco 999 key blank. Let's keep that in the back of our head because we're going to talk about that in a moment. Let's go back to where we were. Step 2 is the YA or the Yale 8. Step 3 is the cam. That's on the next page. This is a 2 if you recall. That's an Adams Wright cam. Standard cam, Sergeant Yale cam, fantail cam, Corbin, cloverleaf, the Schlage is somewhere here. There is the Schlage. You know, Mark's cam, Falcon cam. You can order it with different cams, obviously. Step 4 would be the finish. We're clearly doing an 03 for bright brass, or a BHMA 605. That means 3 things. It's made of brass, number 1. Number 2, it's polished. And number 3, it has a clear lacquer on it. Then anything past that is going to be a reference to the keying. This cylinder happens to be KA2. So when this was made at the factory, there were 2 of them taped together that were keyed alike. So if you needed 2 cylinders, save yourself the locksmithing cost and time and expense, and just order them key-to-like in pairs if that's how you wanted it to be done. So that's how we dissect the part number. Lots of different keyways, as you can see here. Arrow, different Corbin keyways, Russwin, Weiser, Schlage, Schlage Everest, Siegel 9. It's nice to be able to get your hands on a Siegel 9 keyway. You might have a Siegel lock if you're from New York or in New York. You likely have seen a Siegel deadbolt, invented by a New York City police detective, I think in the early 1920s. Siegel keyway. Quickset, Sargent, a couple of Sargents as well. Different length cylinders are here. So this is how your part number will change as the length of the cylinder changes. Obviously, 1.25 inch, a 7205 is very common. And observe how it's pinned and how it's drilled as well. If you're doing a 6-pin system, you'll certainly want to do that. If you have a 5-pin system, you can order a 6-pin drilled key or a 6-pin key pinned cylinder. You're just going to drop that chamber because your key's not reaching all the way through. The rest of this catalog is full of other cylinders, not only mortise, obviously, but rim cylinders, key and knob, lever and deadbolt cylinders as well are in here. Now, that Yale 999, let's open up the key blank catalog. We said we'd come back to that. Section 2 of this catalog, which is a purplish magenta type color, is where all of the North American keys are. And it's alphabetical. Hudson for H for Hudson. Let's go down to Y for Yale. I've gone too far. Lots of Yale here. 999. I think that easy number was a Y1. Let's just search for, wow, there's going to be a lot of those. Okay, there you go. 999Y1 happens to work in some Adams Wright lock. Adams Wright probably produced sliding door locks that would take a Yale keyway at one time. The point is that easy number, the Y1, will help define it or differentiate it from these other 999 series blanks. So in this catalog, where we wanted to know what key blank is used, because you might say, well, I need the cylinder, but I need an extra 10 key blanks. Here's how you find it. 999, the Y1 is the easy number. Then you go back to the catalog here and you can refer, you can find where that 999Y1 is. And somewhere in this Yale section, it will reveal itself. But as you can see, there are a lot of Yale keyways. Lots of 999s. Y1E. Certainly just a different bow would be my guess. Y3. I may have overshot it at this point. I believe that I have. But I think the point is taken. This is where the there's a Y1, and this is the PC. I don't recall what that stands for. It's just a different treatment on the blank. It does also mean it's 5-pin as well. I think that chart will tell us what the number is for a 6-pin. And as we scroll through here, you can start to appreciate how many different keyways there are. That just is done by Ilco, Kaba Ilco. Yeah, I don't see... The 6-pin version would be a Y2, a 999A or a Y2. Here it is. Okay, so we just literally scrolled past it twice. Y1. It's this key blank here. A Y2 is the 6-pin. That's it, literally right here. Helpful to be able to know how to navigate that stuff. It makes the very mystical world of locksmithing a little more transparent. Okay, other documents on here would be encyclopedic documents as it pertains to other Kaba Ilco items, such as key machines. There's also a reference to Gemini here. There is a Gemini cylinder core and keys price list. There's also a technical article here. I think on Gemini it might just be on positional master keying, but here it is. A LOA keynotes article on Kaba Gemini. I think this article was written by William Link, who is an LOA ACE instructor. And if you have the chance to sit in on his class, I would very much recommend it. I participated in 2 of them and walked away far better as a result. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. In conclusion, you're going to enjoy working on Kaba Ilco cylinders. If you're seeing this video, you very likely have. Very high quality. My only complaint, and I guess it is a complaint, the force at which they draw these two 348, number 348, or a 440 screw, I forget the size, is really intense. They're far too tight. I think the material actually welds itself a little bit to itself because of the speed at which it's put in would be my guess. If they would put that in a little less difficult, you need to have a well-fitting screwdriver for that. I've stripped that screw out trying to get it out, and now I'm trying to drill out a tiny little screw. My one complaint. The drastic upside to that is the extreme high quality of machine tolerances that they have. I've told this story before, but the abbreviated version is in 30 years, there's been one key blank. Of the tens of thousands that I've cut, there's been one key blank that I could tell was mismanufactured, measuring it with my caliper. That's a lot of key blanks to not make a mistake on, and the same runs through with their cylinders. Because it's made of solid brass, and not everything in Kaba Ilco is solid brass, but almost everything is. You're going to just enjoy that nice, smooth operation. Brass being a self-lubricating material. It's going to work year 2, year 3, decade 1, decade 2 very smoothly. Very, very smoothly. Any questions on the 7165YA2 in an 03 finish? And we didn't get to the finishes in that page, but brasses, bronze, chromes, polished, satin, black, etc. They can do different finishes clearly. Thank you very much. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.